What I prepared today really follows that nicely. It says the same thing in maybe a different way. So I'm Kerry Kirkland, and the relation is my father, Dan Kirkland, and my mother, Shirley Kirkland. Benny and Pete are very good friends. My parents are blessed to have many very close friends, but they have no friends that are better than Benny and Pete. So I wrote a few things down so I remember what to say. When I asked myself, what's Pete's most distinguishing characteristic? The answer I came to quickly was his commitment to excellence. And not only was he a pilot, he was a naval aviator. Not only did he land on aircraft carriers, he did it at night. He was committed to keeping himself in shape. He was always very fit. He was always playing volleyball, tennis, and golf. He was very competitive, but he was a good sport on those rare occasions when he didn't win. He was my insurance agent since I learned to drive. Over the years, I had 30 vehicles. He insured them all. And clearly, he was committed to excellence in the insurance industry, as many of you know. I remember when I would call his office, and he would always ask how I was doing. He was always interested. And then he'd ask about my wife. He'd ask about my brother. But he'd never ask about my parents. And that was because he usually knew more about what they were doing than I knew. So I wrote down some of the things that he used to tell me about. He'd tell me about their clam digging trips. He'd tell me about the cruises they'd either been on or about to go on. The fishing trips, the backpacking and fishing up in the Olympic Mountains. The visits to the cabin, the parties with the Turnells, and the Longs, and the other people from the squadron. And he always managed to brag quite a bit about Greg and about Penny. So this is the part that kind of resonated with what Greg had to say. He was not only committed to excellence in himself, but he pretty much demanded it of his family and friends. There was never a question that he set very high expectations of the people around him. Betty and Pete taught me how to water ski. Usually Pete would drive the boat. Betty was in the water holding me up. I'm not sure how long it took to teach me how to water ski, but I know that it wasn't the first summer that I tried. And
a couple of years.
Might have been two. But I wanted to give up. I remember, I bet you remember this too, Greg. I would say, can we quit? Can we give up? I don't think it's going to work. It's not working. I want to quit. And both of them would say, no, you're going to keep trying until you ski, so you might as well just get on up and ski. So I eventually did get up. I was probably about the third year that I was trying, but I swear after that, I probably circled Manzanita Bay on skis over 100 times. And actually, water skiing has been one of my favorite sports, so I really enjoyed that and appreciate that they didn't give up on me, and they didn't let me give up on myself. Pete had some favorite words that he liked to use. You'll probably recognize a couple that I picked out. The first one that came to me was the word pitiful. And I'm trying to do my Pete impression. Pitiful, he said. And I remember one of the times he said it. He had just cleaned up the tennis court with me. And he took me aside after the game and he said, "Kerry, your serve is pitiful." And I didn't think he was very kind about it, but he was doing it to help me get better. And so he spent some time with me and he says, "Kerry, if you hit the ball kind of on the top, put a little topspin on it, it'll get some rotation, it'll dive, and it'll kind of go away from the opponent a little bit, and your serve will be a lot more effective." And so he worked with me on it. I think the first time I hit it, it went over the fence. And then I started to get the hang of it. So I got to say, I never beat Pete at tennis, but I did beat a lot of other people because Pete made me be a better tennis player. So the other favorite word, probably my favorite word that Pete used to say, and I heard him say it a few times, was the word tiddly. He'd say, "It's time for a tiddly." And so that always meant that we were going to have a drink. And that always meant that we were going to sit around, we were going to have some fun. There was always family, there was always friends, maybe people from the squadron, it could have been a picnic. Could have been at their house, at the cabin, at my parents' house. Could have been at my house, a restaurant somewhere. But I always loved Pete's stories, and he did tell a good story, I'd say. So Pete was an excellent husband. He was an excellent father. He was an excellent friend. Although he left the rest of us to traverse the stages of grieving, oscillating randomly between denial, anger, and moving toward acceptance, Pete's commitment to excellence was with him on his last day. He lived to be 85 years old, and he was in excellent health. He went out doing the things that he loved to do, playing golf. If I could punch my own ticket, I'd do it the same way Pete did.